الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Today we're going to discuss a very important topic about atheism. It's going to be the base of our thinking among the future lessons, inshallah. I'll read my first lesson from this very book. It's called The Supreme Sign by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. I'll talk about him in our future lessons. Today, let's imagine a debate scenario where on one side you have the atheists claiming their own belief, and on the other side you have the believers. They'll put out their own evidences, but the point that we're going to try to put out today is going to be if atheists can have any argument to prove their beliefs. Because believers do have their own evidences, but can atheism be proven will be the topic of today. Will they be able to put out some proofs that God doesn't exist? Or will they just remain silent and try to refute the ideas of believers to if God the evidences that God exists? So let's read. The first matter. In general questions, denial has no value in the face of proof and is extremely weak. It is a well-known principle that a non-particularized denial not directed to a particular locus cannot be proven. For example, if I affirm the existence of a thing in this world, and you deny it, I can easily establish its existence with a single indication. But for you to justify your negation, that is to establish the non-existence of a thing, it is necessary to hunt exhaustively through the whole world, and even to examine every aspect of past ages. Only then you can say it does not exist and never has existed. On a different part of his book collection, which is called Risale-i Nur, Bediüzzaman gives an example of a coconut. Think of two sides, like the debate scenario. One side claims that coconuts exist in the world, the other side denies the existence of coconuts. The ones who believe that coconuts exist have an easy way of proving their idea, which is to just show a one single coconut in the world and their idea will be proven. What about the other side who denies the existence of coconuts? What do they need to do? They need to look at every single corner of the world, from past to the future. And then they can prove the denial. If it was just a scenario where it was only a small locus, let's say this room, I can't prove the non-existence of a coconut in this room. But when we're talking about a very vast area, like the world, it's impossible for somebody to prove the non-existence of coconuts. And similarly, like for the aliens, you have one side trying to prove if aliens exist or not. If aliens exist, they have their own proofs and evidences and videos, etc., which might make sense or not. But on the other side, you don't see people trying to prove the non-existence of aliens, because no one can just go to the sky and look every single corner and then say aliens don't exist. So those who deny can just remain silent and judge the ideas of the ones who are trying to prove. Similarly, if it's a topic about God, if it's a topic about believing in the life after death, it can be about angels. Any pillar of belief can be proven with a single proof evidence, and that will be sufficient. But for somebody who wants to deny the existence of God or life after death, they need to look at every single corner of the world, which is impossible. It is necessary to hunt exhaustively through the whole world and even to examine every aspect of past ages. Only then can you say it does not exist and never has existed. Since those who negate and deny do not regard the matter as it is, but judge rather in the light of their own souls and their own intelligence and vision, they can in no way strengthen and support each other. For the veils and causes that prevent them, this is a very important place, for the veils and causes that prevent them from seeing and knowing are various. Anyone can say, I do not see it. Therefore, in my opinion and belief, it does not exist. But none can say it does not exist in actuality. I can say that I don't believe in aliens, or I don't believe in coconuts. But I can only say it's in my opinion that coconuts don't exist. I can't say it doesn't exist in the world, as I can just search every single corner of the world. So a denier can say, I don't believe it exists, but I can't prove it. But a believer can't say, I believe it exists and I have an evidence to show you. It's the same with believing in God. A believer can say, I believe in God and I have my own evidences. But a non-believer, an atheist, can never say that God doesn't exist. They can say, I don't believe in God. I'm not convinced with your evidences. But an atheist can never say that God doesn't exist and I am here to prove it. That's why atheists always have they're always admiring if God exists or not. That's why a different understanding, which is called agnosticism, is more about not being sure if God exists or not. So atheists are always in doubt. On the other hand, believers always have their own firm beliefs. So this part was important. I'll read it again. Anyone can say, I do not see it. Therefore, in my opinion and belief, it does not exist. But none can say it does not exist in actuality. If someone says this particularly in questions of belief, which is a much vaster area than the world, the coconut theory, which look to all the universe, it is a lie as vast as the world itself. And he who utters it will be incapable both of speaking the truth and of being corrected. If there is the slightest indication or the evidence that God exists, all the ideas of atheism would be refuted. Think like people are trying to find they're trying to find water in the universe, in different galaxies, in different planets. If they were to find water, they would assume that life can exist here, and they will use it as an evidence that aliens exist. The topic is not about aliens. I'm not gonna personally tell you if I believe in aliens or not, but even the slightest indication of water is used as an evidence for aliens. Even the indication, not a proof, not the images. But think of belief in God, which has hundreds and thousands of proofs, which we'll be discussing in our future lessons. These evidences will add up to have a very strong rope. In short, the result is one and single. In the case of affirmation, and every instance of affirmation supports all other instances. Because we actually skipped this part. The veil for somebody not seeing a coconut or an alien is different. I might not believe in coconuts because coconuts are not grown in my region, or I haven't seen a coconut in my life before. There might be many different reasons why I haven't seen a coconut. So the reason for their denial is very different. And there's also the example of Ramadan, which I'll discuss here. With respect to the sighting of the crescent moon at the beginning of Ramadan, the noble, if two common men prove the crescent to have emerged by their witnessing it, and thousands of nobles, people, and scholars deny it, saying, we have not seen it, their negation is valueless and without power to convince. So Ramadan starts in the Islamic law by seeing the crescent moon, because you didn't have astronomy, cosmology in the past. The way to understand if a month started was to see the moon itself. And if two people see the moon, that's sufficient for the whole area, for the whole country to start fasting, even though millions of others deny the existence of the moon. But why do we take the account of only two people and deny millions? Because all the other millions have a different reason for not seeing the moon. But those two who are seeing are supporting each other, they're seeing what it is, and they have their own proof. But the millions of others have different reasons for not seeing. One of them, it might be cloudy in their area, it might be daytime, moon might not have been seen in their place, his eyesight may not be good enough. So there are various reasons. So even though there are millions of deniers, their power is one. But two people agreeing on one thing, in the presence of one thing, on the existence of one thing add up to have the power of two. So it's similar with belief in God. Many people are unfortunately not believing in God for various reasons. Some of them are not able to see the evidences. Some of them have different problems. Some of them are stuck in a few details about Islam, like some controversial topics, which doesn't actually have a lot to do with the belief in God, but their denial has various reasons. In short, the result is one and single in the case of affirmation, and every instance of affirmation supports all other instances. Negation, by contrast, is not one, but multiple. Multiplicity arises through each person saying concerning himself, in my opinion and view, or in my belief, and leads to multiplicity of result. Hence, each separate instance cannot support all other instances. Now, it is necessary to refrain from introducing any hesitation into the certainty and faith of a believer. But in this age, the negations and denials of the philosophers of Europe have induced doubt in a number of unfortunate dupes, and thus destroyed their certainty and obliterated their eternal felicity. Unfortunately, this is actually also this topic is also the answer to there are millions of non-believers, and aren't the number of disbelievers have a power for atheism? So when you look at the numbers, atheists are much less compared to believers in the world. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, I think, but around 10% of people are atheists in the world, which is like comparing to 90% of believers, it's very low. But even that 10%, which is around, let's say, 800 million, doesn't have any strength. Why? Because the reason for denial changes from one person to the other. If you remember the example of Ramadan, even though there are millions denying it, they still don't have the power of two people affirming it. So even if you had two people, or let's say 10, 20, 30 people believing in that scenario, believing in God, believing in life after death, denial of millions and billions wouldn't be a match to that. Death and the coming of one's appointed hour, which afflict 30,000 men each day, are deprived of their meaning of dismissal from this world and presented as eternal annihilation. The grave, with its ever open door, constantly threatens the denier with annihilation and poisons his life with the bitterest of sorrows. Appreciate then how great a blessing is faith and the very essence of life. So, to summarize, not accepting is one thing, but denial is something completely different. That's also a very nice excerpt, a phrase from Bisalinger from this book. It's not accepting is one thing, but denial is something completely different. An atheist, according to our lesson, can say, I don't believe in God. But an atheist can never say that God doesn't exist. But in the case of a believer, on the other hand, a believer can say, I believe in God, but I can also prove the existence of God, and God exists. It's not just the topic of believing in God, it can be anything, any kind of belief, any kind of topic. It can be about coconuts. So our perspective should be, if we are in a debate scenario, on one side you have the believers, on the other side you have the atheists. Believers have a lot to say. And unfortunately, atheists don't actually have much to say. They can only refute the ideas of believers, their evidences. And if you look at the videos on like social media, you'll recognize that the way that they work is to refute the ideas of believers. Instead of bringing up their own accounts, comments, they're just trying to refute the ideas of believers.